Welcome to WiscoDice. Hey, yo, folks, I am your host, Conesy with the Most, and I am joined today by.
This is Justin, the Meeples champion.
I'm Matt, the Ghost Walker.
And I'm Suzanne.
And this is episode 124 of the WiscoDice Tabletop Gaming Podcast. Today is June 27th, 2024. On today's episode, we're super excited. We're pumped. We are absolutely ecstatic because we are doing our annual Gen Con 2024 preview show. This is where we get to talk about a number of games and or expansions that we're excited to see or hear more about at the show. These games might be for sale, they might just be for free preview or demo. We're just super ecstatic about these games. So with that, let's roll into this episode. By the way, folks, this list is going to include games from all four of us, but if you're interested in more Gen Con preview content, head on over to our YouTube channel, link on our website, get more information about more games that Suzanne and I have on our lists. We are absolutely excited to be there. Look for us at the show for some bonus WiscoDice swag. Justin, what do you have on this list, buddy? It looks like you got a crazy set of some awesome games here.
So my first one is called Ada's Dream. This is from Alley Cat Games. They're going to be in booth 2052. And I'll note that this is available as a demo at Gen Con this year. In Ada's Dream, you play an assistant to Ada Lovelace as she attempts to build the analytical engine, one of the first devices that could be considered a computer in the modern sense. You build an engine on your player board, your prototype analytical engine on a player board by drafting dice. You add modifiers to your player board to manipulate the values of those dice and alter their value and ultimately your final score. Looks to have really nice production value to it. And I'll just say that if you want to know more about Ada's Dream, you should head over to WiscoDice.com and check out our Kickstart Monday article where I covered this game and go into a little more detail.
Link to that will be in the show notes, by the way.
Yes, there'll be a link for that in the show notes. And I will say this game I'm super excited about too, after reading the Kickstart Monday review on it. And it's definitely one that I will be looking for there.
Suzanne, what's your first one?
Oh, my first one. Well, you know what? We're going to go with something very different. That's maybe a little bit more kid friendly. I did not pick it because it's more kid friendly. I picked it because it's a game about dogs and we have all these cat games, right? So I picked Zoomies by Fireside Games and they're going to be located in booth 2434. If you have a dog, you've probably seen it get the Zoomies when it just runs like crazy. This is a kind of a domino style game with dog tiles, and there's lots of different ways to score. So it's not your basic dominoes, it's a little bit, a little bit more to it. And it just looks like a lot of fun and like a silly, crazy, enjoy yourself game. That was Zoomies by Fireside Games in booth 2434 that I'm going to check out.
There's not nearly enough dog games.
I know. That's kind of what I was thinking, is that I needed some dog games in there. In our collection too.
I think this is an Orla approved game.
Is it?
I would think so.
She
gets the Zoomies.
Oh, for sure.
Just a little bit. Matt, you have anything that involves animals?
I do, actually. There's one on my list called Mistwind. It is published by First Fish Games. They will be in booth 836. Who doesn't need flying whales? I mean, it's a game that's supposed to be based on setting up trade networks using flying whales of all things. So it has some interesting disc mechanics, some things that looked interesting that I just thought looked kind of cool, but I'd almost want to see in practice to see how it plays. But I just thought it was an interesting concept with, and like I said, have I mentioned there's flying whales?
I did get a peek at a prototype of this last year, and it was interesting to see those whales as they have them like up in the air, moving around the game board. So
Yeah, I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that this game's gotten a bit more attention and development work. Prototype copy that we got to see at last year's show did look pretty cool, but the game felt like it needed a little bit more. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that it's taken a little bit more development cycle and thought, because I think there's a really cool concept here.
Yeah. How about you, Ben? What's on your list?
Well, we got some animals, so we'll stay on the animal theme for a second, kind of. So, Dungeon Cart, it's kind of got animals. It's from Brotherwise Games, and you can find it in booth 339, so not too far from Mistwind, actually. This game was on Kickstarter, I think, not that long ago on crowdfunding. This game will be available for retail at the show. It is probably the first time that I've seen, and I can't believe it's taken this long to get a full blown Mario Kart clone onto the board game tabletop. So racing has always been a common theme in a lot of board games, that you can attack each other and stuff. So I'm really cool to see how this plays, all of the different characters and whatnot, and if it really does capture some of that Mario Kart feel. Because if it does and can pull that off in a actual board game, I think this is going to be really, really a cool, fun game. I was surprised when I got to play Thunder Road Vendetta finally, and how awesome that was. And if this can kind of just have that crazy chaos, carnage in a fast to play game, I think it's going to be awesome. It'll be a lot of fun. So really hoping for some good things with Dungeon Cart from Brotherwise Games in booth 339.
Yeah, this one caught my eye. I'd be interested to see how it compares with something like that was really big last year at Gen Con, which was Dodo's Riding Dinos, which has a little bit of that feel, but just looking at the art on Dungeon Cart feels a lot more like Mario Kart, just the way it kind of the art and things like that. So
They are
yeah,
they are clearly going for the Mario Kart feel.
absolutely.
It's yeah, and I really hope that it nails it. That nail that chaotic attacking and skidding out, and throwing stuff at people, blowing them up. Like if they nail that, it could be really good.
yeah, I was reading about this one because it was on my list too of ones to check out, and it seems very much like Thunder Road Vendetta with the chaos and how the board is laid out and the obstacles in it. But I'm just going to note that while it looks like Mario Kart, it's actually based on Boss Monster. So if you're familiar with the Boss Monster games, it's those same characters and that same artwork style. So
Mm.
it looks
Mhm.
like Mario Kart, but it's not Nintendo figures. It's all or
Correct.
characters. It's Boss
They can't
Monster
afford
characters.
that licensing.
Yeah. I mean,
I
that's
just I
why I
just
said
don't want anyone going looking for the game and looking for Mario and Luigi and the Koopa Troopers and not seeing them.
Next up, I got a game called How to Save a World. This is from Burnt Island Games in booth 2004. It'll be available as a demo at Gen Con. How to Save a World is a worker placement game with hand building and resource management where a massive asteroid is headed for the planet that you all live on. In the game, you're going to work towards three distinct, separate plans to try to deal with the asteroid and put your resources towards one of them. You can build towards like a giant space laser to try to blow up the asteroid and save the planet that way. Or maybe you can generate this energy field, like a big force field to protect the planet so it just bounces off, I guess. And then ultimately, the kind of last ditch effort you can put resources into is evacuation, like a total planetary evacuation to save the population and go populate a nearby moon, kind of a thing. One of the things that really grabbed me is on the board, there is a visual depiction of this massive, glowing, burning yellow and red asteroid that you advance slowly towards the planet, like every round or something like that, which just caught my eye immediately. Really like to see that like visually represented and probably as the game timer, I would imagine. and it just sounds like a cool combination of mechanics and theme.
It's kind of like a movie. It reminds me of some different movies where you have the asteroid coming towards Earth and what are they going to do?
Oh yeah.
But it's in a game. And right now I cannot think of the name of that movie, but
Well, there's Deep Impact is one of them.
that might be it.
Or Armageddon.
And Armageddon, I think, is the other one. They came out at like the
It's
same
not
time.
Armageddon that it reminds me of, but I think it's Deep Impact. You got it.
They're basically the same movie.
They are, but there's aspects of them. Armageddon's got the whole music soundtrack, and we won't go into that here, but anyway, there's a lot of these end of the world type games that seem to be popping up more and more the last few years, but this one doesn't seem like it's like complete end of the world. Well, we
And
had
it
evacuation,
yeah,
right?
true.
This year,
Yep.
like you got to get off the world and stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think this isn't set on Earth. It is like a fictional planet somewhere else. So I don't think they're trying any political commentary or
Oh,
anything with this.
I didn't even think of it that way. Oh gosh. Well, should we another not so I don't know if you consider end of the world horror or not, but there is going to be another expansion to Final Girl coming out. This one's the North Pole Nightmare by Van Ryder Games, and they're in booth 2533. So this is, if you're a Final Girl fan, you've probably been collecting all of the, expansions, all the different scenarios they have. And I do know from the Facebook group I'm in for Final Girl that while this is a solo game, lots of people play this as a cooperative game with their partner. And so in this one, you are working to defeat Krampus. So if that sounds exciting, and even if you're not a solo game player and you have someone to play with, I would suggest checking out Final Girl, the North Pole Nightmare by Van Ryder Games.
I will say that I am not a solo gamer,
Nope.
but I actually sat down and played Final Girl and absolutely love it. It's a great game that tells a narrative story, and you can appreciate the story as it comes out and unfolds before you while you're playing the game. It's not horribly mechanically complex, but plenty of challenge and plenty of ways for you not to be the final girl. Let's just say that
Yeah.
as you play the game.
Yep.
So, great game, and it's always good to see more and more different little variants on it because each little variant has like a different story with it. So it'll be interesting to see how it sets up the narrative for taking on Krampus and what you have to do. I'm sure it'll be extremely thematic.
So, Matt, are you another battle against the world type game for us, or are we getting a
Oddly, I
different way?
do. There's one that I spotted when I was at Gen Con last year, and they were just in the middle of their Kickstarter, and it's a game by the name of Weirdwood Manor. I do believe it has come out. I think I even saw it on Amazon the other day, but they're actually going to have it there. It's by Grey Ridge Games. It is at booth 1937. It is a co-op game where you're battling against monsters and you're trying to beat them within a certain time frame. There's some interesting mechanics where after everybody's turn, even the bad guys, time progresses. And when time progresses, things move in the manner. So pathways open, pathways close. And so it was on my list last year, and I did actually get to run by the booth, but they didn't really have much to look at last year. I would love to actually see this one in person, see how it works, get a great demo of this one. Again, it's Weirdwood Manor by Grey Ridge Games at booth 1937.
Yeah, that kind of sounds intriguing, that idea. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something that goes into game mastering where you have like the game clock ticking and oh, well the monsters didn't just sit there and wait in the room while you rested outside or you took your time
Hmm.
exploring or expanding like that. It's also like that you don't really realize that mechanic in Mansions of Madness, but it's there and definitely if you take too much time, the threat
Yeah.
level keeps going up and up and up. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how that works in a board game form. I don't know if there's an app or anything like with this game, or if it's all just board game mechanics. But that would be it'll
Yeah.
be cool to see how that gets pulled off.
Yeah, I believe it's all game mechanics, but yeah, that was the part that really intrigued me. This concept of the manor keeps moving, the monsters move, everything, like time progresses, and you do run out of time. So, how about you, Ben?
Yeah, so I have Citrus from Tress Games at booth 2833 next on my list. Now, this game and Tress Games is not a company or publisher I've heard of. And I should know 2833, the booth is also the booth for Good Games Publishing. So if you're looking for this, they're in the same booth. They're sharing the booth with Good Games Publishing. This game is basically a alternate future game in a sci-fi universe that has basically the concept of like, hey, if you live on the planet Earth at this point in these big cities, you're basically living in the underbelly. All of the rich and elite are living in floating cities that are driven by technology up in the air. Basically, you're a merc, of course, in all of these classic stories and movies. You're a merc that's living in the underbelly that's going to work jobs, and if you work enough jobs and you make enough money, you're going to hopefully be able to get out of living in the grunge that is the underbelly and move up with all of the elite citizenry. So that's the whole like concept. Looking at the game board and components, like this game's got a lot going on. It's got like a cool like makeshift floating city board, it looks like, and a bunch of like hexagonal tiles and like sky towers or skyscraper type build structures, and like there's just a crazy amount of like stuff going on and components going on with this game that really has me intrigued. The theme is one that I'm interested in. I do generally enjoy those kind of movies and stories as much as I don't know that they always capture my like, oh hey, this is a movie I want, but I always seem to enjoy them. So I'm really interested to see like what this game actually plays like and how it mechanically operates, because that could be like a real decisive factor here for whether this ends up coming home with us. Actually, I think it's just for preview. Yep, it's just for demo this year, so unfortunately it won't be coming home with us this year. Hopefully that'll at some point it'll be coming home with us in the future if it really shines at Gen Con.
I'll say the designers on their BGG pictures look very happy. They're full of smiles. So, but I was looking at the table presents for this game and it's pretty neat. Like that is that 3D, city that's floating. So it's got like layers going up and down and just a lot of colors without seeming to be overwhelming too. And lots of different boards. So this will be I'll be checking out now too. Thanks, Ben, for the
Yeah,
comment.
no, there seems like there's a lot of crunch to this game with all of the different boards. I'm hoping that it's not overwhelming. The playtime looks like it's, they're saying like 40 to 100 minutes or something like that. So the playtime doesn't look like it's too unreasonable. Of course, I'm sure that's not calculating in the setup time for it, but hey, nobody's perfect.
Does anyone calculate the setup time into their play time for a game?
I don't know. I do. The weight looks like it's kind of in a weight range that's really good for potential getting back out for us, particularly getting out on board game nights. It's kind of a mid weight is what it's rated at. So there's a lot of good things that like intrigue me about this one.
So I'm going to have to take us from the dystopian future way back to the era of pirates on the high seas. And
Darn.
that are and that is with Pirates of Maracaibo from Capstone Games. They're in booth 1743 and this should be available for sale this year at Gen Con. Pirates of Maracaibo is not an expansion for Maracaibo, the Alexander Pfister game. It is a standalone game that uses some similar mechanics to Maracaibo, but a little more accessible rule set and probably less playtime. So if you're looking, I think, for kind of a Maracaibo light, this might be the thing for you. You're going to captain a pirate ship sailing the Caribbean. You're going to hire crew. You're going to explore and search for treasure. it definitely has some shared DNA with Maracaibo. There's an exploration map that you advance a worker along. You're moving your ships from island to island and port to port. You looks like you're upgrading your ships as you play as well. A lot of the things that I really like about Maracaibo. Maracaibo is one of my favorite Euro games. So I'm very interested to try out this more accessible version of it.
Looks like the people that have played it and rated it on BGG have rated it very highly because it's a 8 on
Yeah,
there,
it's
which
it's
seems
rated
pretty
pretty high, and
good.
it has a fair number of ratings. Not
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
can see how it looks a lot like Maracaibo
yeah, the art looks very
too.
similar,
Yes. Yep, and the map and everything too. So,
and it looks like the
oh,
game board is made up of different cards or tiles, like polyomino kind of tiles.
mhm.
So maybe there's a variable setup too, which is interesting.
Well, that
Yeah.
would be really interesting. Yeah. Just
So yeah,
get
Pirates of Maracaibo, Capstone Games, booth 1743.
okay, switching from pirates, but still staying back in time. Let's go to Board and Dice's booth at 2611 and check out Windmill Valley. This is a game that's set in the late 19th century in the Netherlands, and you are constructing windmills, planting tulips, and picking tulips. Besides just the idea of windmills and tulips, which I love both of those things, it has another one of my favorite mechanics in games, which are multi-use cards. So if it says multi-use cards, I'm like, hey, I got to go look at this. Uh, so I will be checking out for multiple reasons Windmill Valley by Board and Dice.
Also
So
looks like it has really cool little player rondelles with gears on them, which looks really
it,
neat.
it
Like your
does.
windmill is turning the gears of your board or something like that. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And see, I was just sucked in by the multi-use cards and didn't even notice the rondelles there. So yeah. But anyway, so yeah, Board and Dice is in booth 2611 for those of you that want to check this out also. But Matt, what else you've got on your list?
So the next one I have on my list is actually called Maps of Mystera. It's publisher is called Sit Down. Their booth is 1321, where they will have some demos of this game. Though if you do want to purchase Maps of Mystera, it will be on sale in booth 1429. The concept behind the game is a bit of a tile laying where you have your own map board and there's a main board and you're exploring this land and there's some tile laying mechanics. You're balancing your own personal goals against having accurate maps, and the maps will be changing a little bit here and there. It was interesting. It had some interesting combination of mechanics, honestly, that I'd want to see a little closer to understand kind of how they play together. I always liked the concept. It just kind of reminded me of several other games where you're building maps, though those are more of a drawing. But I thought there were some interesting mechanics there. So and that is down by Sit Down at booth, like I said, 1321 for demos or 1429 for sales.
And you got us anything that has us exploring the world?
I don't know about exploring the world, but I was going to talk about a game from one of my favorite publishers who has put out one of my top 10 favorite games of all time in Distilled, and that is Paverson Games, who coincidentally will be in booth 2151. But this year they'll be showcasing and previewing in better detail and in more completeness Luthier, which should also be in crowdfunding by the time Gen Con comes out. Now, Luthier is all about making instruments and maintaining instruments for classical musicians during the what is referred to sometimes as the golden age of music. So the age composers like Beethoven and Bach, all these big Posers are going to be looking for various instruments. So they're kind of you're a instrument maker and maintainer, and so you're supplying, say, posers and they're with instruments and maintaining them by basically taking in turns bidding as a worker placement action on various actions. And then once everybody's placed their bids, then you resolve the bids to determine if you won the bid, you get X. If you lost the bid, you might get something because you beat out others, maybe for being second place on all these different things. And you're collecting resources, which you then have to spend to keep these musicians. They're kind of like sponsors for your little burgeoning business, where they're your patrons, I think is what they're called in the game. And you're trying to satisfy your patrons, and if you don't satisfy a patron in a given round, it's not like they go away, they just get a little less happy with you. And if they get too unhappy with you, they will leave. Of course, if you keep your patrons happy, and the happier you keep them, the better you do in the game, the better you score points, and the better ultimately some of the rewards are. So it's like a very interesting balance in a couple of really neat mechanics that I like, along with layering on some additional complexity and how you manipulate those resources once you collect them. So I'm really excited to really see this in a much more finished version that is be able to experience hopefully a little mini demo or something more than just the prototype version we got to see last year. That is Luthier from Paverson Games at booth 2151. And don't forget, while you're there, tell Dave and the Paverson Games team hi from the WiscoDice crowd. Make sure you check out Distilled as well while you're there.
My next game is called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This is a Euro game from CGE, who is going to be in ICC rooms 235 through 239. Game will be available as a demo. In SETI, you lead a scientific agency who is searching for signs of extraterrestrial life in the solar system. You're going to launch probes, you're going to explore planets and moons and search for signs of life or exoplanets with telescopes. It has a really neat looking rotating solar system board, multi-layer rotating solar system board where planets and sections of the solar system will orbit and rotate around. There is a big deck of like 200 multi-use cards. So it's got those multi-use cards in there for you, Suzanne,
Yay.
and which all represent things like specific technologies or projects that you're going to be doing to research extraterrestrial life or radar dishes to search for signals and things like that. Just looks really cool. Love the theme. CGE almost doesn't miss. Looking forward to this one.
CGE always has some fun games up in their rooms in the ICC. So if this is your first time at Gen Con and you haven't seen them, they're outside of the vendor hall and up a flight of stairs. So really close, but a real fun room to check out in there.
Plus side is they open, I think, an hour earlier than the vendor hall. So if you're looking for something to check out or do while you're waiting to get into the exhibition hall, you can actually swing by the CGE room, purchase games that they do have for sale, all the great CGE titles, as well as get a look at games like SETI, which I am sure if it follows the CGE model for preview at Gen Con, release at Essen, means that for those of you European listeners or are going to Essen, you'll have an opportunity probably to get this game. We are super excited to check it out and will likely be picking this one up when it goes to retail.
That is good to know that you're going to buy this for us, Conesy, and I don't need to do that then.
Well, you know how I am with games. I just acquire them. The looking for players table needs to not get any forgiveness when it comes to bearing heavy weight.
Yes. I am surprised that we've never both purchased the same game and end up with two copies of it here. So Uh,
We actually did that with with one of the expansions to Dice Throne, but that's a story for yet another tale.
oh, I think I need to know about this too then. Anyway, so talking about games that we would have a double of in some ways, I really want to check out Corridor Pac-Man by, believe it's pronounced Gigamic. We have Corridor, but this is the Pac-Man version of it. Publisher is located in booth 2435. And Corridor, if you've not played it, is a two-player game. It's wood components for like the basic one. So this one's going to have a Pac-Man theme on it. So you're, chasing around and gobbling other items up, and you're making little walls for your opponents. So you're trying to just get to the other side of the board before the other opponent does. It sounds pretty simple, but it can be quite a brain burner at times when you're playing against someone. Our daughter absolutely loves this game. I've only ever beat her like once, and we've played it way too many times to count. It's a two-player only game, and I believe the Pac-Man version is the Pac-Man version goes up to 5 players, so that would make it even more interesting. So you can play it great at 2, can get up to 5, it looks like now, and chomp around and play Pac-Man on your table. So, um, yeah. So that's Corridor Pac-Man version by Gigamic Games and booth 2435.
I can see how the corridor mechanic could easily be translated into Pac-Man. So yeah, I saw this. I was also pretty excited for this one. This one is definitely one that if it ends up coming home with us, if it's available for retail, I may not complain about that.
And then we can just send the original Corridor with our daughter to her new place.
Yeah,
So,
she's gonna have a great board game collection to start off with. Well, actually, I think she bought Corridor, so hey,
oh,
it gets to go with her.
yeah. See, no furniture, but games. It's all you need, right?
Yeah,
So,
pretty much.
all right. What's next up to talk about?
So yeah, I have another one, and that is going to be, I think, maybe the only expansion on this list for this year. Not that there aren't a bunch of great expansions coming out, but you'll hear more about them on the YouTube video. So make sure you catch that as well on top of this preview. And that is the expansion from Board and Dice, who we've already talked about earlier, booth 2611. This expansion is indicated as it will be available for retail, and that is the expansion to Barcelona, Peseg de Gracia. This is from, designed by Danny Garcia, who I am getting to really like all of the stuff that designer has worked on. Of course, it's what Board and Dice is. If you haven't caught it before, Board and Dice is one of my favorite publishers out there. I am wasn't as ecstatic about the majority of their releases this year. Barcelona is a really, really strong, good game. This expansion looks like it's going to add just a little bit of extra interesting fun to it without terribly changing the game or modifying it. So I'm really looking forward to getting our hands on it. Because we love Barcelona, we will almost for sure pick up this as an expansion at some point to it. I could see us coming home with it. That is Barcelona Passeig de Gracia 2611. Make sure that if you love Barcelona, you pick this expansion up because if they're at the if this expansion's at the show, I could see this one selling out in a hurry.
So I will not be racing to the Board and Dice booth to get this because
You'll be
I don't
busy
want to get
racing
trampled.
somewhere else.
Maybe that's for me to know and you to find out after the show,
Yeah,
after
yeah,
Gen
yeah.
Con is over when we're unpacking everything.
I'll be
So,
busy working during the initial Thursday rush. I'll be busy working for Gooey Cube. If you're interested in playing some Dungeons and Dragons with the Conzi, I think there might be tickets still for some of the games I'm running, but I'll be working in the Gooey Cube room for a good chunk of my Gen Con, running D&D games for Gooey Cube with some amazing adventures and amazing products. So yeah, definitely check that out too if you're at the show.
Yep. So, Justin, you got anything else we should check out?
Got one left on my list. This
All right.
is next one is Sprocket Forge from Sophisticated Cerberus Games, who's in booth 2566, and this will be available as a demo. I wasn't able to find a ton of information about this one, but in the game you play as artificers building a factory with magical gears. You upgrade your factory and have to keep it clean because apparently mana powering your gears clogs things up and makes things dirty. So there's this aspect of needing to keep your factory clean to earn more points. Beyond just that description and the name, I don't have a lot of information about it. It will be on Kickstarter in July, and I enjoyed another title from Sophisticated Cerberus, The Stifling Dark. I'm excited to see what they do with what sounds more like a Euro game.
Yeah. Conesy and I have had an opportunity to see the prototypes for this a few different times throughout the progression at different conventions that we've been at. That's Sophisticated Servers has been at too. It's very different than Stifling Dark. Really cool little gear mechanic kind of rondels with your resources going around and falling off. Like I've been super excited about this since they told us about it. I think on our one of our podcasts where we first met them and we interviewed them about Stifling Dark, they did mention this, and I've been excited and waiting for this to come out since then.
I don't know how to describe it as far as what I would think it's related to, but yeah, the prototype copies were early 3D print versions of like the way the gears and stuff were going to work together, but if they can pull off that tangible component of that, it's going to feel like it's a bit like in my mind almost that taking that Zolkin mechanic of the way the gears are on the board, putting a version of that almost in every player board
Oh,
so that
nice.
every player kind of has their own little set of gears that they're manipulating and then they can swap out things and whatnot. It looks really intriguing from what we got to see, but we haven't gotten anything more than some initial kind of information and being able to see preview copies. So, yeah, we're going to have to rope the Sophisticated Service folk crew into giving us a better rundown of what this is and maybe see if they're willing to come on the podcast on a future episode to tell us more about Sprocket Forge.
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Yeah, that would be really cool because, yeah, I'm very excited for this. I have one more game that I am excited enough about to get all of you excited about it too. This is a super lightweight game compared to the other ones I've had, which have all been, kind of light too in some ways. But this is Aqueda, City of Umbrellas. So it's set in Aqueda, Portugal. It's by 25th Century Games, who are in booth 1233 this year. And you are creating beautiful street art with umbrellas in the city. So you're trying to match patterns, and there's some tiling and worker placement. The complexity overall is rated pretty low for this, but to me, it looks like one of those games that's somewhat relaxing to sit there and push pieces around and kind of challenge yourself as well as challenge, against whoever you're competing against too, to just make some pretty pictures and patterns. I don't know, it really caught my eye. And those of you who've been listening to the show for a while know that what I consider pretty games and peaceful looking games are also some that I love just as much as the ones that you fight other people in. So, that one is Agueda, City of Umbrellas by 25th Century Games.
All right. I think that gets us through all of the games we're going to talk about on today's episode that we're excited for and are previewing here for Gen Con 2024. Suzanne and I will be at the show. If we get a chance to meet you or say hi, feel free to flag us down. We'll probably give you some cool swag while we're talking to you. So that's always awesome. We love interacting with our fans and publishers. Like I said, if I'll be particularly working in the GUI Cube room, running D&D games for a good chunk of the con, but we will have plenty of time to check out the exhibition hall and all of the cool games, get some pictures, and we'll do a big Gen Con wrap up afterwards to show you guys all what the awesome stuff is at Gen Con. Hopefully there are some games here that you thought were awesome. If you're looking for the Gen Con preview list or anything like that, you will be able to find it linked in our show notes at WiscoDice.com. Hey, Justin, what was that website?
WiscoDice.com.
I can't remember what that website was. What was that website, Matt?
It's WiscoDice.com.
That's right. It is WiscoDice.com. So Suzanne's rolling her eyes going, oh my goodness, you can't remember the name of your own website?
Especially after Justin just told you 3 seconds
I
ago, not even
know.
30 seconds ago.
But hopefully you guys out there won't forget. And I'll hop on over, find all of this additional information, as well as some great additional information about Gen Con, things to know, things to check out, all of that. We'll have links to all of that in the show notes for this episode.
Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you leave a review of this show wherever your favorite place is to find podcasts. Oh, and by the way, give us a like on our Facebook page. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest while you're at it. If you haven't looked recently, make sure you catch up on the blog at WiscoDice.com. Hey, Brian, what's that site?
Oh, darn, I forget. Justin, what's our website again?
WiscoDice.com.
That's right, it's WiscoDice.com. And until next time, everyone, peace out.